Welcome back, everybody. 21 minutes past the hour. Dwayne Patterson in for Hugh Hewitt, joined by M.K. Hammer. Mary Katharine Ham is the host of the Normally podcast, the Getting Hammered podcast. Except, Mary Katharine, I think I am going to demand that Donald Trump invoke Section 740 of the Getting Hammered agreement and federalize the podcast so that we get it back in production again. On behalf of all Americans.
I don't know if I can morally take federal funding, so I guess he could just order me to do it. I don't know if he has that authority.
Will it work? Will it get you finally back behind the microphone?
It's very kind of you to push, though. I don't know if Mr. Trump would agree to it.
Well, he might not, but still, it would be fun to get you back in the game again doing the.
Thank you. I'm working on it.
Okay, fair enough. So let's talk about the takeover. What says Mary Katharine Ham about the takeover? Look, he campaigned on it, and crime was it was one of the big five on the issue sets that a lot of suburban moms voted for him again.
Well, here's the thing, is that because D.C., as always, because it is a federal district and not a state, and a partnership between local authorities and feds, he has more power here than he would have other places where you have to work in concert with the governor, for instance, on National Guard, more than you would have to here, where he has more power. There's always been like a gentleman's agreement that, hey, this is part federal city that we control and part local stuff that you guys control. But if y'all's part gets out of hand, then the federal government is going to want to do more. And despite the 1973 bill passed by Congress that allows DC home control, Congress can also overturn a bunch of DC rules if they want to. And so, you're in a situation where the local governance doesn't have as much control as it would otherwise. So he has certain powers here. There is a situation in DC, as there was in many major American cities, that I don't know why they decided in 2020 that they would devolve to the point of like committing suicide as a municipality. But nobody could commute to their cities for work. They shut everything down for extended periods of time, including schools. They hurt a bunch of people doing so. Crime went up. They embraced BLM and defund the police, and it led to terrible, terrible outcomes for the people who live in DC and for the people who go back and forth between DC, or even tourists who come to visit, right? Because some of that crime spreads out. They have gotten slightly better, but the bar was in hell. The bar was 2023, where you had almost 40 per 100K homicides in the city. So yes, numbers have come down, but they came down from an insane high.
It went from hell to Hades, right? It went from the ninth circle of hell to the seventh, right?
Right.
It's slightly better, but it's still a big problem when you compare it to other third world capital cities in those countries. But look, Mary Katharine, to me, this is another issue where it's an 80-20 issue. It may be a 90-10 issue. People honestly don't like being mugged. I'm just here to shed truth on it. Most people don't like getting shot, stabbed, and mugged. People tend to frown on that when it happens to them. Now, they may like it if it's part of an overall policy or a feel-good, bleeding heart agenda, but most people are anti-mugging when they are the ones being mugged. But it doesn't stop Donald Trump from taking this issue and having a bunch of Democrats, a bunch of media types, all of a sudden taking that 10%, taking that 20% hill and dying on it because Donald Trump is on the other side of the issue. Dana Bash, our friend on CNN, we've both known Dana Bash 4 Dana Bashes ago, right? We've known her a long time. Here was Dana Bash after Donald Trump's press conference talking about why he had to do what he had to do. Cut 23.
And just as we go to break, I should note that the most violent moment in recent history in D.C. was January 6th. And it was an attack on the United States Capitol by a lot of people who were doing it in the name of Donald Trump. And it included the people who were hurt, included members of law enforcement.
Mary Katharine, honest to goodness, where do you even go with this?
I mean, like, look, if you lived through 2020 in and around the city, that's not even technically the case. Like, there were a lot of nights that things were very, very bad. And that doesn't mean that January 6th was good. It's just like, hey, we have an agreement here where, by the way, we're going to be doing the 250th celebration of the country. And I think Donald Trump takes that pretty personally because he's going to be overseeing it. And a lot of people are going to be coming to the city. And the truth is,
it's a big
like,
show. It's going to be a big...
Yeah.
It's going to be a big show, and that's the one thing that Donald Trump wants to be able to put on is a big show, and you can't have a bunch of homeless encampments.
Exactly. Well, and I've lived in the area for many years now, more than I like to admit, and going back and forth between the city throughout, and it does feel different than it did 7 years ago, 5 years ago. There are many more homeless encampments. They are in more obvious places. They've been cleared out basically since Trump got to town in some more obvious places, like out front of Union Station, where there used to be a giant one. A lot changed in that 2020 to 2023 period for the worse in DC. And no, it is not the face that you want to put on when you're presenting yourself to the nation for its 250th. I don't think he wants that. I think it got personal with the Doge employee, also known as Big Balls, who got mugged or carjacked and attacked by a group of teenagers in Adams Morgan, which is not a super dangerous part of the city. That's up in Northwest. Where he got attacked and hurt by, I think, sounds like valiantly protecting his significant other in that situation. And he doesn't want his people messed with like that. He doesn't want to be in a city that allows that. And it's interesting to me, Muriel Bowser, who's the mayor, was on MSNBC this weekend on Sunday saying, look, I've talked to him throughout his tenure this time. We've been on the phone. We're making improvements. We still have improvements to make. I thought it was interesting that she was signaling that that line of communication was open and she wanted it open. It was so different from Trump 1.0 with her. And I think it's homing in on what you're saying, which is like, people are just fed up with the crime, and she knows that, and she's acknowledging that she needs to do something about it.
Absolutely. The Washington Post, you flagged this story for me as an A.G. Hamilton 29 post. But the Washington Post came out with a bit about how D.C. crime is out of control, at least so says Trump. Here's what the data actually shows, and it tries to minimize it all. You get 29 graphs out of 30, MK. 29th graph, quote, this is a safe city. But overhearing and witnessing gang threats and then watching the camera footage of the thuggery is disturbing, said one resident, speaking on the condition of anonymity over concerns of personal safety. The crowd of teens, he said, were roaming the street and appeared to be checking for unlocked cars and things to steal.
Oops. They don't even know they're telling on themselves. But there is a large problem with youth criminality. And this is not to say that, like, the hammer needs to come down on every single offender every single time and derail these people's lives. But I do think what the message was sent was that if you are young, if you're a minor, you can get away with basically anything in this city, and we're going to let you off the hook. And that meant that you created and incentivized more criminals who are minors, who then derail their whole lives doing this. It's a terrible idea.
10 second out question. How long before we see tangible improvement in the District of Columbia? Weeks, months, days?
I think this story, it'll be effective. It'll last about 4 days, the story, because no one will want to talk about it afterwards because it'll work.
See, I think so too. MK Hammer on Twitter X. Someday soon, maybe through an executive order, coming back to getting hammered. We'll be back right after this. Stick around.